Brian Goulet here at GouletPens.com, and it's episode number 194, Goulet Q&A. And I'm back finally. Had a little technical snafu last week. Had audio only on the Q&A. That's okay. I know that it was kind of miraculous for us to get one out anyway, because I was out of town. I was in Germany visiting Lamy in their factory in Heidelberg. And I have to say, this was the first time that I'd ever been outside the country before. And it was a pretty awesome experience. It was a whirlwind. Like, I left on Saturday afternoon. I had to drive from Richmond to DC, which is about 2 hours, maybe a little bit more with traffic. And then I had to fly out of DC that Saturday evening. Of course, I had to go through customs and all that kind of stuff. It says like give 2 to 3 hours to go through the airport with security and all that stuff. And I went through in I gave 3 hours to have plenty of time, and I got through in 20 minutes. So I had like 2.5 hours to wait at the airport. And then I flew basically overnight, flew from DC to Iceland, and then had a layover in then Iceland to Frankfurt, and then drove from Frankfurt to Heidelberg, which is about an hour. So it was about 21 hours of total travel time in all, just because of all the various delays and things like that I ended up having. But after about sleeping a blissful 2 hours on the flight over there, I arrived and I'd scheduled a pen meetup, which I kind of mentioned here briefly before I left. But it was cool. I had 8 of us that showed up to this meetup, and it was awesome, really solid group. And we talked for about 2 hours or so, and then parted ways. And it was really cool to kind of get to hang out and meet some awesome German pen fans. So that was really cool. And then I got to spend the next couple of days touring their factory, shooting lots of video, literally like seeing the whole production of like how is a Lamy converter made. I got to see the machine that literally assembles every single component, and just seeing like how the injection molding works on the Safaris, and the assembly on the Ion and the Studio and the All-Star, and seeing the nib manufacturing process, like literally from raw stock, start to finish. And it was just mind-blowing. Like, just to give you some scale, like they produce 35,000 steel nibs every day, and it's just like, what, and they have this machine that is computerized and inspects every single nib as it's being made. And I was just like, this is crazy, just crazy. So, so much good stuff to come out of that. I got to interview the head designer there as well as the CEO. So it's going to be some really interesting stuff. I got like a much deeper appreciation for them at Lamy. Just like, it's clear that they're not just like cranking stuff out because they're trying to make a buck. It's like they care about writing, they care about innovating and coming up with cool stuff. So I'm just kind of fired up from that. I connected on the passion. They've been growing, like crazy the last few years. And just seeing like, especially like for us as the US, being where we're based here, seeing like really the US is a pretty small market for Lamy, but they know that it could be more, and there's more that they could do to help us out. So just building those relationships and stuff. I was extremely honored to be over there, and there's going to be at least 4 videos that we have planned coming out of that. It's going to take us a few weeks to sort through it all, because I ended up with like hours and hours of footage. It was funny. I like had my DSLR camera and then my phone. I had multiple DSLRs actually, but I would have like 2 cameras in my hand and be shooting different stuff, and it was a bit wild trying to keep up with all that. And I was like running on like little sleep the entire time there, but it was an absolute blast. So thank you to everybody at Lamy who allowed me to go over there and hosted me, and it was a pretty unforgettable experience for me. And then, of course, for my team, and just for you all for the footage I'm going to get to put out. So it's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. And I got to see the new colors of the Safari and All-Star. They're going to be coming out next year. And I can't say what they are, but they're going to be pretty cool. I'm excited about them. So that's all I'm going to say there. So that was pretty rad. Have some products that we've launched here. The new winter premieres. So those, we did something different this time. The long and short of the story here is that, we had picked these colors, and Edison, we've had, they're in the process of like getting new machines and ramping up production, and there's a lot of flux kind of going on with Edison, and we've been working with them. But basically the situation was, we wanted to do a flecked material. We haven't done a flecked material since Majestic Pine. It's been almost like 2 years, basically. So we wanted to do a flecked material, and we really like these colors. However, we couldn't get enough stock of either one of these colors to last the season. We've usually fallen short every season recently anyway for a variety of reasons, but we knew that we would not have enough stock. So what we decided to do was try something different and do like a yin and yang kind of thing. So we have Nightfall and Frost. And so we came out with 2 pens at once, and we wanted to basically have availability for both pens. That way you could kind of get your choice and then have a chance of at least getting one of the ones that you wanted. So far it's been working well. We've had them. It's only been like a week and a half, but like we actually still have them in stock. Frost, I don't know, we're a little low on, so that one might run out by the time this video publishes, but we've at least had decent stock. So already that's kind of worked there, so that's been good. And then there has been a price increase on those pens. Of course, there's a blog post that's out from Edison explaining the whole price increase thing, but that's going to be a universal Edison pen thing. And the long and short of the reason why that price increase is going to affect January 1. And the reason why we went up in price on the Premier is because basically, Edison, they have a production schedule and they need to schedule some things out, and they kind of did us a favor by allowing us to launch these pens pre-holiday, like in the holiday season here. They shifted some stuff around and prioritized the manufacture of these pens. So basically, kind of the deal was they'll manufacture these pens, but they need to be at the new price. We can launch them a little bit early ahead of the January 1, but they got to be at the new price. So, it was either that or not have them until much later. So we opted for, we'll have them a little bit higher and have the price a little higher on those. So all Edison's pens will be higher on January 1st. So just a little heads up at that. Some other cool things, we got Lamy ions. These are new. This is a new Lamy model that they have been 3 years in development on this pen, and I got to see how they were being assembled while I was there. Of course, I think they have different machines there that are manufacturing stuff in shifts, so I didn't actually get to see the parts being manufactured for the ions, but I did get to see them they're hand assembled, which is pretty cool. So I know we've been waiting a number of months for these pens. Stock has been a little touch and go for us in the US here, but we have them now. And a lot of you have been curious about the nib just because it's a little bit different shape. It's really the same writing nib, though, I promise you. It's just the wings are not kind of cut in as much. They're a little more bulbous, like they kind of come out and around. That's purely a design element. Jasper Morrison, who designed this pen, that was a design element that he wanted. So that is why they're doing it that way. But it's a really sleek, subtle pen. It's a pretty good size pen. It's got some decent weight to it. It's an aluminum pen, so it's got some decent weight. And more so than like a Safari or something like that. But it's like a solid stock pen here. So the aluminum finish, like an anodized finish, and then it's got some like brass components inside here that add a little bit of weight to it. So all in all, I like the way these write. I think they have a good balance in them. They're a little bit longer bodied pens, and there's a nice matte finish. They're brushed finishes, but then a matte finish on the grip. So even though it's a metal pen, it's got a nice kind of solid grip there. So I'm digging that. So you can check those ones out. We have them available now. Another thing that happened for like 5 minutes was the Conklin Duragraph Merlot, which is like this burgundy kind of flecked color with the black trim on the Conklin pen. Basically what happened in this pen is they made a mistake. They wanted to do a purple and they wanted to do a red, and they ended up with this color that was kind of in between, and they were like, well, we didn't really mean to do this, and they only had so many of them, and so they were like, well, do you guys want to just kind of basically blow these out and get rid of them, so then we can come out with the colors we actually intended to come out with, which is purple and red. And so they gave us an opportunity to get all the Merlots. We thought it was going to take several months to sell them out, and they flew. So we got a deal on them, so we charged a lower price, and we wanted to just get something exciting out there for the holidays, and it freaking worked. So they were all gone. Like literally, they were delayed on their fine nibs for the next several weeks, and we were like, oh, okay, well, and that's why we advertised in the newsletter and on the product page and stuff, like, okay, fine nibs will be delayed a couple weeks, but all the rest of the pens just disappeared, and we were like, well, should we hang on to these pens for several weeks to maybe get the fine nibs? And it's like, or should we just put stubs on them and let them fly? And that's what happened. And we put stubs on the last batch, and they flew in like 10 minutes. So it was like, okay. I had no idea they would sell that fast. Like our whole team is just like, what the heck? But they were hot to trot and priced to sell, so they sold. So there we are. But now we have the purple one. This is called the Purple Knights and then the red one's going to be called Red Knights. This is more priced appropriately to the regular Durograph, so you're not getting a killer deal on these ones like you would have on a Merlot, but you can still pick these up if you're a fan of purple. It might be for you. So we got those available now. Another thing I've got, I don't have a sample of it yet, but the Knock Brasstown in Spa Lime is going to be coming to us soon. I thought we had them already, but I think they're on their way. And then another thing that I've got is the TWSBI 580 All Rose. So I think this is actually launching the day that this video comes out on Friday. So I'm shooting this on Wednesday, so I'm not 100% sure. I think that's when they're supposed to launch. But I wanted to show you and give you a little bit of a, ooh, I don't have my remote. I can't really zoom in. Oh no, Andy. Oh no. Where'd my remote go? I don't think I have it in this room, and I really don't have time to go searching for it. All right, I can't zoom in and out. Sorry, everybody. But I forgot to check for that. My disc is a total disaster, by the way. Since I've come back from Journey, it's been ridiculous, just ridiculous. Anyway, so here is the rose, and I wanted to try to show you what it looks like in comparison to the pink, because Rachel has the TWSBI pink. You can't really see it that well, but you can kind of see it. And then I had the orange as well, so you can get a good idea. I'll put the red one in the middle there. Boom. And try and get you some glare. That's really not great because it's so zoomed out. But you get an idea. So it's a noticeable difference. It's not like a, lava kind of situation here. But this is, the pink. It's not like a punch you in the face kind of red, but it definitely leans a little bit on the pink side. But, I think rose is a fairly appropriate color for it. So if you're interested in that, we'll have those. I think they'll still go pretty quick because it's a pretty popular color. And then what else do I have? Yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, and then Field Notes has the Haxley and the 10th Anniversary Edition, 2 new Field Notes that we have available there, so you can check those ones out if you're a Field Notes fan. Something else I've got is the Peniter Key of Heaven. So this is the La Grande Balizza. I probably butchered that, but this is that style of pen. And it's cool, the packaging is really neat on this pen because it kind of the box kind of explodes open, and then the pen is, the pen case is like a little writing desk. And and then what's interesting about this particular one is it comes with a couple of bottles of ink as well. So, oh my gosh, I got cards falling everywhere. And the bottles of ink are really cool. So the colors, I forget what they are, but it's like a gold and a red or something like that. So it's kind of cool. It's like a little J.R. Bond style with the little pen rest there, so kind of neat. And then the pen itself is this really cool kind of translucent color with gold trim. So this is kind of unique to the other models because the other ones all have silver trim. So if you like this, and this material, I don't know, it looks to me way better in person than it does in the digital form. So it's a very shiny material, a little bit translucent. It's got some layers going on. Very interesting material. And then it's got a unique nib as well, which I can't really show you in great detail because it's not there. But check out the product page on our site, and you can see what that looks like there. And I got to assemble all this back beautifully, as it deserves. Okay. And then the last couple of things I have as new products to show you here is I have a couple of new Viscontis, which are some rather fancy pants looking pens. I have the Homo Sapiens Jade. So this is a translucent jade color. It's a green translucent, and it's got a real jade stone in the top. Of course, the whole thing can't be made of real jade stone, but pretty darn close match. So it's a real stone in the top. Fantastic looking pen. You can check those out on our site. And then the other one is the Northern Lights, which is kind of an interesting model. I haven't really seen this exact model before, but we've been getting some questions about hey, is this similar to the Manhattan? And it's not. It's kind of reminiscent of the Manhattan, but it's not the same thing. And I'll get it out of the packaging so I can show you what it looks like. But this one, if you're a fan of teal Demonstrators, is really sharp looking. This one's got some more metal accents. So it's got a metal grip with some kind of an Art Deco kind of vibe going on here. It's got the green enameling in the clip. It's got this teal, color going on, double reservoir power filler, just like you would have on, some of the Homo Sapiens limited editions or a Opera Master or something like that. Full size nib on this one, palladium nib on both of these pens actually. So really nice looking pens if you're interested in any of those. We don't have high quantities of them. They're a limited edition, so they're numbered, and most of them went to Europe, and we just had a few that kind of trickled into the US, and we were, wanted to get our hands on them, so we did. So you can check those things out if you're interested. All right, let's get to the questions this week, shall we? First one is a pen and writing question from Touzeen H on Facebook. Your fountain pen predictions for 2018. So I have to be careful here not to give away any privileged information just because I have been talking to some folks and I have some details, but literally they're like, you cannot talk about this yet because they want to do like, a more structured global release of the new products. I get that and I respect that. So some of the stuff I'm going to really dance around, okay? So I know that Pilot's 100th anniversary is coming up next year. I've already been given a heads up from them. I can't even really spill any beans because they've been so tight-lipped about what they're developing. All I know is that what's been communicated to me is so a lot of the shortages of the Rodin and Mher pens that we have right now is because a lot of the artists are working on something for next year, for the 100th anniversary. So I don't know exactly what that is, but I know that it's going to involve Mher to some degree. Not a huge shock, but the struggle is real in terms of stocking the Vanishing Point Rodin Galaxy and stuff like that. We haven't seen those for a while, and we may not for a while just because of constrained resources of what they're working on over there. So I think we're going to see some probably epic Mher stuff that's going to come out there. Just based on the Mher and what it all takes, there's no way that they're going to have some mass-produced 100th anniversary thing that's going to be widely available to everybody. My guess, and I don't really have any insights into this, my guess is that they're probably working on something that's going to more push their artistry and be more of a kind of a representation of some of the finer things that they can do. And so that means it's probably going to be higher price, limited availability, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was prioritized in Japan and not really to the US market. So I don't know how much of that stuff that we're really going to see here in the US in terms of actual availability, but it should be pretty exciting just to see what is created. And then they may be coming out with some other stuff I don't really know yet at this point, but it should be kind of interesting. With Lamy, of course, I just went to Heidelberg and got to see some things. I know they have a new All-Star and they have a new Safari, and I know that they are working on, coming out with those. The time frame of those is going to be around February for the All-Star and around April for the Safari. That's kind of the rhythm that we've seen for the last couple of years as they've been coming out with stuff. So that's cool to see them kind of keeping up with that. And I can't really say much more beyond that. Regarding those things, I know that they have some other stuff in the works that's going to be available probably later in the year, and that's really all I can say. But it should be kind of interesting and exciting for everybody. And then just, the new distributor. So there's a new U.S. distributor for Lamy, and I think that they're, that's part of why I went over to Heidelberg was I went over with the distributor and got to know them, do some relationship building there, and then got to kind of talk about the U.S. market with them in Germany, and that was really cool. So I see a lot of good kind of energy coming out of that relationship that we have with the distributor, and then with Lamy in Germany, a lot of good stuff. So I think the U.S. market in general is going to be something that is going to be paid more attention to and kind of cultivated from Lamy Germany's part. So that's really kind of encouraging to see. I think some of the stuff that we've seen here has been kind of that's really interesting why this has happened, and a stronger distributor relationship now is going to be helpful, I think, in that way. So I'm encouraged to see some of what's come out of that. So even if it's not in terms of specific new products that are launched, I think in terms of information distribution and stuff like that, we're going to see some better things coming out of that. I think we're going to see some interesting stuff coming from Visconti too. I haven't gotten a ton of insight, but I know that there's a lot of things in the works. Some things I've even been told a little bit on the lower price range, which lowers relative for Visconti, but we're going to see some new and interesting things coming out of there. So keep your eye out for Visconti as well. And I've been telling them some of the feedback that's been coming out about nibs and other various things that I've talked about in Q&A, and they've heard that loud and clear. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop that out. So I think we may see something on that front. And then, with Ponider, it's a newer brand that we have. Dante Del Vecchio is bringing his energy there. I think that he's planning to come over to the U.S. early in the year. And so that should be really interesting. And I think it's been a number of years since he's been to the U.S. I think the last time he was here is when we interviewed him here almost 2 years ago at this point. So it'll be interesting to see him again. Always a force to be reckoned with in the pen world. But Penider is going to see a lot more stuff. They've come out with 2 pen models so far. That's been relatively quickly after his joining them, and I think there's going to be new things that he's working on there for next year. TWSBI, I don't really know too much of what else is going on with TWSBI, but if they kind of keep up with their trend of coming out with new colors of existing models, I think we could see that. I know that they've kind of talked on Facebook of some various other models that they've been working on that are going to come out. So I think we're going to see probably 1 or maybe 2 new models coming out from TWSBI as well, which would be really encouraging. So I think they've been doing a pretty good job with their stuff recently. So I think it's a lot of potential there. And then Edison is going to continue to grow. They're investing in better machinery and a larger shop and more employees. So I think Edison is ramping up. I don't know in terms of new products if we're going to see a whole lot coming just because they're working on infrastructure. But I think in terms of availability of their stuff, it's going to start to get better just as they get their new machines up and running. That's going to help. So that'll be cool. Aurora has got some new stuff coming out, I know. I think they're working on, some different versions of their flex nibs, so that'll be interesting. Not different versions, different, colors and pens and stuff like that. So kind of continuing with that a little bit. And then one thing that I'm, just kind of out there is I'm a fan of Conid, and I'd actually kind of emailed back and forth with Conid in my communications about my trip to Germany. I was trying to maybe work out something with them. They're a little too far. They're about 6 hours each direction from where I was, so wasn't able to squeeze it in on this trip. But if I make another Euro trip over there, I may have to check out their factory because I'm really fascinated by Conid's design and stuff like that. So I mean literally it's like there's a relationship kind of budding there. I don't know them deeply. We don't know each other that well, but there's a mutual respect there between our companies. And I think when they get to the point where they're ready to do more widespread distribution, I think we could see something happen there. So I can't guarantee anything, but there could be potential there, and that would be like really, really cool for me because I'm really fascinated with their pens. So, no promises, no guarantees, but maybe hopes and wishes for next year there. Let's see here. Stipula is going to have some stuff in the works. I know they're kind of ramping some things up. I can't believe the Passaporto actually didn't come out until 2018, but I'm betting we're going to see it come out in 2018. That's what I'm being told anyway. And so that finally may exist. And then Monteverde and Conklin are going to continue to come out with new stuff. They've been just pounding out new things and interesting stuff. So I think there's going to be more of that to show. I know we've got something in the works, another exclusive type thing already. With Conklin, so I'll just kind of work that out there, but should be some interesting things there. So that's like really top of mind stuff for me. Ink, I'm not 100% sure what's going to be new coming out with Ink. I usually don't get like super advanced notice with any of the ink companies, like even companies like Noodler's, like some of the larger, like closer American ones. It's like I usually find out when Nathan like launches something on YouTube. I'm like, oh, I guess this exists. Like the safety pen, for example. I don't know if that's going to be coming about in 2018. I really don't. It might, but I don't know it's going to be widespread or anything like that. So there's stuff like that that's like, okay, it's just things that are probably going to butt up, but I just really don't have much of an idea. There's nothing that's like looming on my mind about new stuff that's coming, like Shimmertastic type ink, that I'm like, oh yeah, this is really going to become a trend. I don't really know. I mean, I haven't seen, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like, forgive my pun, but is becoming saturated in the marketplace in terms of, like for example, shimmering inks, sparkling inks. There's a lot of different ones now. You've got J.R. Bond has some, Diamine has some, Robert Oster has some, and Diatramentis has some. And then, of course, there's like Organic Studio and some other smaller companies that have that kind of stuff. So it's like there's a number of different companies that have that. It'll be interesting to see if that continues to be a trend or whether that starts to kind of play itself out. We'll see. But either way, we're always trying to stay trendy and stay top of mind for the new stuff. And I just don't know what the next like big booming thing out there is for ink. I just haven't quite gotten that yet. So that should be interesting. And then notebooks, it's like I don't have any major insights on notebooks either. I know there's all kinds of companies that are constantly trying to like come up with new notebook formats and designs, and I think, just in general, it's like there's companies that are trying to come out, like I see like Moleskine and Montblanc and some of these other companies that are like integrating digital stuff with notebooks. So like, having a notebook and then like having a digital pen that reads what you write and all that kind of stuff. It's all rollerball stuff though. It's not fountain pen related. So I don't know how much of that will really like translate into our community. That's more of the, kind of the, I don't know, tech digital crowd that are like trying to go analog. So it'll be interesting to see if anything develops there. I'm not aware of any product like that that's being developed from like the fountain pen side of things. So I don't know. Notebooks, it'll be interesting to see. It's like, bullet journaling continues to be popular. It's, it had a big boom, and then, it's like I think it's plateauing maybe a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if bullet journaling is a fad that's ending, or if bullet journaling is just taking a stair step, or it's going to plateau a little bit. So that'll be one interesting thing to see how it pans out. And then, I don't know. So I don't have a lot of foresight about notebooks either, but that's kind of my thoughts on what's going to happen in 2018. It'll be interesting to see. All right, next question is from Beckley Knight 27 on Instagram. What's your top 5 favorite demonstrators? So demonstrator pens, for those that you don't know, are clear pens. Actually, the origin of demonstrators is they used to have, conventional fountain pens, and then the sales reps, as they would go around and visit the physical brick and mortar stores for their pens, in order to demonstrate to the sales clerks at the pen stores how the pens actually worked, they made clear versions of the pens, and many of them they even like numbered and labeled the different parts of the pens to show the sales clerks how they worked, so that they could then explain it to customers as they were shopping. Demonstrators originally were not meant to be used by the public, but obviously in recent years they are something that has caught on as a whole new trend, and clear demonstrator pens are some of the more popular pens that we sell. And I think for a number of reasons, because one, it's just freaking cool to look inside and see how a pen works. And the other is that you get to see the ink inside, and that's just cool too. So, it's a fun thing for those who like colors and like to see stuff going on in their pen. Demonstrators are very popular. So, what are my 5 most favorite demonstrators? So this is really hard. I have a lot that are like really, really close in there, but since you asked, I'll just go ahead and pick. Don't hold me like super hard and fast to them, because I really like most demonstrators. But I'll go ahead and get into it a little bit here. So the first one that I would have to give a head nod to would be the Pilot Custom 74. Love the pen. It's I use a blue demonstrator version, but there's a clear, there's a smoke, there's orange, purple, and then the blue one it was my first gold nib pen. It's near and dear to my heart. It's also blue, which I love blue, clearly from my awesome sweater, which, by the way, just want to show you my sweater there. My son has dubbed it Santa Jaws, so I thought that was kind of fun in there. And Pilot Custom 74, big favorite demonstrator of mine. Next one I have is the TWSBI Eco. Now, TWSBI is a number of demonstrator pens. I really like most of them. I was tempted to put like 3 TWSBIs on this list, but I didn't. I limited myself to just one. I really like the Eco, and of course I'm showing you an Eco that you can't even get anymore, the turquoise, but I like it partly because me personally, I like the round barrel on the Eco. I mean, the diamond barrel on the 580 is really cool. Like, it is really, really cool. Me personally, I like the kind of uninterrupted, just clean round barrel look on there, especially when you watch the ink sloshing around. So that's kind of cool. The hexagonal cap, I could kind of take or leave. If I could have like the straight barreled Eco with more of kind of the cap of the 580, that would be really cool pen. That would kind of be like more, yeah, that's what I want. But either way, still love the Eco. Love the nib, love just the way that the grip feels and everything. I don't need like a harshly triangular grip or anything like that. All around good pen, good ink capacity, solid price, like great pen. So big fan of the Eco. Keeping things real as far as the price goes, don't overcomplicate it. Just platinum preppy. Like, this pen was one of the first pens that we carried at Goulet, like first pens of any pens that we carried at Goulet. You can eyedropper convert it. You can fill it with ink. It's not like super, super clear demonstrator. They've changed their design on the pen several times. I think they're going to be undergoing another one soonish, another kind of design shift. And it's fine that they're kind of making things interesting. You can still see it in there. If it was like completely clear, that's cool too. I know I've seen some of those in like some of the older Noodlers bottles that used to have preppies with them, used to have unprinted preppies that were in there. Those are pretty cool. But they do a good job with the design, and it complements the color and stuff like that. And I like the route that they went with having just the plain steel nib and then the colored accents on the pen body, as opposed to a couple of years ago they used to have colored nibs. And it's interesting, but it's not my flavor. So I like the route that Preppy's gone. Solid pen for a couple of dollars to be able to get a solid writing pen like that. Come on now, it's great. All right, now I'm going to kind of like jump on the further end of the pricing spectrum. So the pen that I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier in the broadcast here by Konid. This is the Konid Minimalistica, and I like this. It's a torpedo-shaped pen, which I think overall is kind of more of my favorite style of pen. Very much like Lamy 2000-esque, just that kind of cigar-y, torpedo-y with the chopped ends kind of look. And there's so many things about this pen that I find are fascinating from like an engineering standpoint. My favorite one being the filling mechanism on this one. So I'm a big fan of having a lot of ink in the pen, if for nothing else, just to be able to see it. And then I'm a big fan of just cool, fun filling mechanisms. Like I love vacuum fillers and things like that are just interesting. And piston fillers I'm a fan of from an engineering standpoint. So this one is kind of cool. So it has a slide piston and it has a rod in here that actually screws into the piston head, and then you can slide it down, and then you can fill the whole thing with ink. You twist it, it locks into place, and then the piston rod actually unscrews from the piston seal and goes down in place. And then it can seal up just like a vacuum filler does, or you can open it up. So it gets like the same ink capacity that a vacuum filler would, but you can draw the ink up just like a piston filler. And it's just a cool and interesting kind of thing happening in there. And it's all clear and it looks really sharp. So I'm a big fan of that. It's got a nice seal on it. It's got an O-ring inside the pen that like locks it onto the grip of the pen. Titanium clip that's got a little bit of spring to it. And you can see it's clear inside and you can see what else is going on. So good job, Konid, on this one. And if we can work something out in the future, I'd be really happy to carry your minimalisticas and the bulk fillers and all that fun stuff. The other one I have, I'm embarrassed because I couldn't find it in my office. I think I have it at home. So I normally try to bring anything that I have at home to work for Q&A, and I dropped the ball on this one. So the last one I have is I'll lump it together as the Visconti Homo sapiens, but specifically the London Fog. So this was a limited edition that came out last year. Was not around long because it was super popular. It's a gorgeous pen. Yeah, it's not like a clear, 100% clear demonstrator, but you just said favorite demonstrator. So I'm taking liberty with that term. And it's a great pen. I absolutely love the aesthetics of that one, and it's got to make my list. So there you go. You may not agree with my list. You may be like, what about this pen? I'll be like, oh, I wish I thought of that pen. But anyway, these are the 5 that I thought of as I was drafting this list. All right, next one is from Nameless Nanashi on Twitter. I find the gimmick of the Pilot Justus95 very interesting, but does it add complexity to the maintenance of the pen? How easy is it to disassemble and clean, and how would you compare it to the Metal Falcon and the custom 912 Falcon? Assume you fit them all with the Con 70. Okay, so it's a bit of much going on with this question, but I'll at least go ahead and mention because the Justus95 just doesn't get as much love as I feel that it should. So it's an interesting pen. It's a large pen. It's got a little bit of weight to it. And the whole, you call it a gimmick, I call it a feature, whatever it is. The whole idea behind this pen is that it has adjustable softness on the nib. So really the softness of the nib, if you take off the little contraption that's on the top, it's a pressure bar, right, that holds the nib. And if you take off the pressure bar, I find the flexibility to be fairly similar to a Pilot Falcon. So you talked about the Metal Falcon. The weight of the two is fairly similar, and the size and everything. So I think, honestly, if you're debating between the two, the Pilot, sorry, not the Metal Falcon. That's a 912. My bad. So the weight of the Metal Falcon is going to be fairly similar to the Justus95. Justus95 is a little bit longer, but overall, not a drastically different pen. And in terms of the softness of the nib, these two are going to write very similar to each other. If you have the pressure bar put in the hard position, it's not going to have the same amount of softness. So what that pressure bar is doing, it's not changing the amount of flexibility that the nib is able to give. It's just changing how much pressure is required to get that flexibility. So if you really don't want it to be super flexible and you want it to be pretty stiff, you turn it to the hard. If you want it to be softer, you just twist it and it moves that pressure bar down, and then you're able to use it. So you're asking me about maintenance and stuff like that. I quite honestly don't have a Justus95 personally that I've used extensively. It's not a super hot, popular selling pen, so I don't have a ton of feedback from people that have used it specifically about how it's cleaned. I have not heard any complaints about how it's cleaned, and it's Pilot and their quality is fantastic, so I think it's going to be just fine for you. But I don't have anything specific to say about special treatment you should do. I think if you're disassembling it, you should not pull the nib out. You should not pull out the pressure bar and stuff like that. There's just too much going on here that could maybe go wrong if you end up taking the thing apart. So I would just clean it like a normal pen. You know, you can pull this converter out. You can use a bulb syringe and you can flush through it and do all that stuff. I wouldn't worry about disassembling the grip of the pen. That would be kind of my only word of caution. I kind of am the same way about the Falcons too. Yes, you can technically remove the Falcon, but I think for most people it's like it's going to be too easy to screw it up. So I recommend don't do it unless you have a lot of confidence in your ability to do it. Especially on the Falcon nibs, it's got the swooping feed. It doesn't have an easy way to really grip that feed. So I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you really know what you're doing, or maybe have some special tools for nib removal. And so I think these two are somewhat comparable. Of course, the Justus95 is going to cost you a little bit more, but it's a really large, kind of heavy, solid pen. So I think it's a nice, interesting pen in that respect. And then the one that's kind of different is the Custom 912. So this one, in terms of its size, is almost identical to the Justus95. In terms of the way that it writes, it's a little bit different. And the feet, you can even tell just from the shape of the nib, it's a little bit different. Well, you can't tell that much because you're zoomed out too far. But it's got these kind of cutouts in the wings of the nib, and that really adds to its softness. And what's interesting about, it's kind of like if you've seen the Franklin Christoph or the Edison Flex nibs coming from Yovo, it's kind of like that concept. So rather than like shaving and thinning the nib on the underside, they cut out material on the sides. And it does make for softness. I find that if you hold it really low angle like this, it's going to skip a little bit. So you got to hold this at a higher angle. And you write, and kind of the way that, from what I understand, the Japanese write when they do the characters, especially with these types of pens, is they do more short, kind of quick strokes with a little bit of pressure to get that line variation. They're not doing long flowing strokes like we do when we write cursive longhand, right? So it's a little bit different style than that. So if you write a little bit higher up and are writing in print or writing maybe short cursive and you're not trying to get like these long Spencerian kind of flowing things, it works really well. But some of the flack that the FA nib gets for it is when you're trying to do something with it, it's not really meant to do. So that's the only kind of word of caution there. It's definitely soft, maybe even a little softer than these other two, but the other two are much more popular, I think, because it just suits American handwriting style a little bit better. So that's what I would go with. Yeah, cool. All right, I have an ink question from Lynne on Facebook. My question is, if you ever had to design an ink bottle, you've done ink and pens, so why not ink bottles? What would it look like? Assuming you're going for both beauty and practicality, how much ink would you have it holding? What bits of the various bottles would you want to keep? What thing would you do that no one else seems to have thought about? And what bits of other bottles would you not use at all? So for me, I think the perfect size of ink bottle is 50 milliliters. It's a good amount of ink. It's not too much. When you get above 50 milliliters, you're really committed to that bottle of ink. And it's in all practical. Like if you have one ink color that you love, having more than 50 milliliters might make sense. But like I have plenty of Noodler's 3-ounce bottles. Literally, I've only ever gone through one of those bottles completely, which is Noodler's Black, which I've used for every Nibnook writing sample that we've ever done for all the pens that have come through this building. That's the only one that I've gone through an entire 3-ounce Noodler's bottle in the 8 years that I've been involved in fountain pens. So you really don't need more than 50 milliliters, in my opinion. You can always buy multiple bottles. You can always get, so I think that's the perfect amount. you go less than that and you get kind of small and it becomes the ink level, it gets more difficult to fill. So I really like 50 mil just because of out of a standard amount. I love the design of the Pilot Iroshizuku bottles. I love the design of the Pelikan Edelstein bottles. I like kind of that cleaner look, more of a polished bottle, a little bit heavier glass. I like that look. Of course, it costs more to do that kind of stuff, but whatever. We're not talking about cost here. You're just talking about ink design. No, I do like that. I like having a wide neck. That's also what I like about both of those bottles. Is I'm really not a fan of the really narrow necks. And I mean, I want wide neck. I want you don't have to worry about any pen filling out of that bottle. And both of those are really good for that. What would be really cool would be have some kind of an ink reservoir. So I know some of the ink bottles, think about the Iroshizuku's got a little dip in the middle. Lamy has got a nice dip for a kind of a reservoir. Going with that, like Mont Blanc, their kind of shoe bottle, nice reservoir there. I like that concept, I really do. It's definitely more expensive to design a bottle like that as opposed to some symmetrical thing. But I would really try to incorporate something like that if it was at all practical. I wouldn't do it at any cost, but if it could be practical to incorporate something in there. That, or you could go the route of maybe a Namiki bottle that has a plastic insert, or you think about the TWSBI Inkwell, how it has a plastic insert in there. That works pretty well in terms of being able to fill when the ink level gets low. That's really kind of what I'm going at with all that stuff. So those are all really cool. And then I'm not super into string on my bottles, so it's even Iroshizuku, as much as I love that ink, I always get ink all over the string. And I think part of the idea with the string is it can catch a little bit of the ink if it kind of goes over, but it's then it gets all inky and it just looks kind of gross, and then I end up tossing it. So most of my Iroshizuku bottles don't have the string on them just because I ditch the string. And I think about J.R. Bond has really nice looking elements on their ink bottles, but then as I am using them, I get ink everywhere and it ends up kind of looking splotchy and stuff. So I would rather have more of a clean, crisp bottle. That's what I like about the Edelstein is they don't even have a paper, label on the bottle itself. It's like a imprinted, kind of thing, or an overlay on the glass itself. That I actually really like a lot. So that component I would probably try to do from Edelstein. And then an interesting concept that I like would be the filler tube, like you have on the TWSBI Inkwells. You know how you can attach the pen to it, and it's got a tube that goes down and kind of draws the ink up. I think that's really cool. And trying to incorporate something like that that could be maybe more universal. I don't know if it'd be practical to do something like that on every bottle of ink that would go out, or if that's more of an inkwell or the Stipula Netto system has something like that, the TWSBI Inkwell. Having something like that, it might require more engineering and cost than would be practical to include on every single bottle of ink as it goes out. So I don't know, maybe I just need to concentrate on developing more of a traveling inkwell specifically sort of situation, but that I think is just a really cool, kind of fascinating thing. So there you go. Those are my thoughts, just kind of, top of mind things going on with ink bottles. All right, next one I've got about ink as well is from Mher G on Facebook. I've used Pilot mixable colors, the ones that come with the parallel, on a Rhodia pad with a Pilot Falcon, but it bled through to the other page. I tried a Pilot Namiki cartridge, and it didn't bleed through. What's the difference between the Pilot mixable color cartridge, Pilot Namiki, and Pilot Iroshizuku? I've never seen a good explanation anywhere. What are some other good papers for flex writing and calligraphy that do not bleed through? Have a blessed holiday season and keep up the good work. Thank you, Mher. So these are different inks. These are 3 separate kind of designed inks. The mixable inks are literally made to just be with mixable, and they even say on there to just use them on the Pilot parallels. Go figure. You can use it in other pens, but it tends to dry out a little bit quicker, and it's a little bit more viscous of an ink. So I think the situation that you're in there is that it's a more fluid ink, so it's going to tend to bleed maybe a little bit more, and it's made to go in the parallels, which is using those plates instead of a normal nib, and so it's I think traditionally intended to be used on heavier paper, calligraphy type paper. So it's maybe not as much of an issue with those types of things, watercolor paper and cardstock and stuff like that. Not so much everyday inkjet paper. So if you're using it in a conventional pen, you might see some more problems with it. So that's really what the mixable cartridges are for. The Pilot Namiki cartridges, that's more the traditional kind of Pilot ink. That's called Pilot ink in Japan. In the US, it's called Namiki ink, or in the cartridges, it's Pilot Namiki. So it's same companies. They've kind of shifted back and forth a little bit with their branding between those two names. These days, Namiki tends to be the higher end of what you see. But then it's interesting, you get like a custom 823 and it comes with a bottle of Pilot ink, which you can't buy separately in the US. It only comes with the 823. But the ink inside it is actually the exact same as the Namiki blue ink. So it's interesting stuff like that. And then Iroshizuku is a whole separate thing that's formulated a little bit differently. I don't have like full scientific information about what makes all these things different. But what I do know is the Namiki ink has kind of a waterproofness quality to it. The mixable inks are made to be able to mix with each other, specifically in the parallel. And then the Iroshizuku ink is the more conventional kind of fountain pen ink that works great, really good at bleed resistance and flow and all that kind of stuff. So that's more of your conventional ink. So if you're looking for a wider variety of colors than what's available in the Pilot Namiki, you go Iroshizuku. Of course, there's no Iroshizuku cartridges. That is something that I've given feedback from Pilot. It's like, would you consider offering Iroshizuku in a cartridge? They have not been interested in doing that in the past, but I don't know, maybe I can wear them down. I'll keep suggesting it over and over and over again, and we'll see. But that could be kind of interesting. So, that hopefully will help distinguish a little bit. Again, I don't have like an MSDS sheet to tell you the chemicals and stuff that make it different, but I think in terms of performance, if you want the water resistance, you go Namiki. If you want the colors, you go Iroshizuku, and if you want the mixability within specifically the parallel, you go mixable cartridge. All right, next one. I have 5 minutes before I have to leave. We're going to see if I can do this. 2 questions left. This is troubleshooting from Roxanne R. I've been using my Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo daily for almost a year. Lately, the converter has been getting stuck. Really stuck. So stuck that I ruined one converter trying to pull it out with pliers. I've replaced the converter and tried to clean everything, but it still sticks. Do you have any other tips? I use the Diatramentis Document Black ink. While we're on the subject, do you have any tips for cleaning the nib area? Okay, so I have the Decimo right here. It's very similar to the Vanishing Point. I think it could be the same concept within the Vanishing Point because quite honestly, it's literally the same thing. So, you were talking about getting the converter stuck, having to pull it out with pliers. So honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with your ink necessarily. So I'm just going to go down a couple of different roads here. It's going to be a little scattered. I'm trying to rush. So when you initially get the pen like I have here, it's in there really good, and you got to yank the thing out. Once you kind of break that initial thing, you're really in pretty good shape there. So you've had it for a year. I don't know if you've never actually pulled the converter out before. It's entirely possible. But doing that initial pull out can be kind of tough, and if it's a little slippery and stuff, I could see where you'd feel you might need pliers, but it can come out there initially. So that's right there. That's Vanishing Point or Decimo. If you are actually getting the thing stuck in the pen like this, that's more of a problem. The converter itself being stuck in here, if it's this part, that you should be able to pull right out of there. If you're actually getting the nib unit stuck inside the pen, that to me is more of like a warranty issue that you may want to contact Pilot USA about if you're in the US here, or you can write my team and we can try and help you troubleshoot in more detail. But really that nib unit should be able to come out very easily. In fact, it has a spring in the front here that just kind of like pushes the thing right out of there. But if you're talking about needing to clean, and see, I can't tell exactly from your question, I'm even interpreting it now differently as I did last night when I prepped this. If you're talking about like cleaning the nib area, I don't know if you mean the nib area of the body of your pen or the nib area here. But if you need to clean this nib area, the best way to do that is with a bulb syringe. You literally, one of these blue bulb syringes, you just fill it with water and then you just flush it through here and it flushes water straight through. You could actually take and you could let this whole thing soak in water overnight too. Part of this is I think you're dealing with a document black ink. This is a permanent black ink. The maintenance is going to be a little bit higher on that than it will be on a conventional ink. And you want to make sure that you're cleaning it very regularly using an ink like that every couple of weeks. Okay, so I think that's probably most of where your issue might be coming from is, I'm just guessing, but maybe it comes from a regularity issue on the cleaning front. So if you clean it every few weeks, then I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. And then just kind of wrap that up. If you have any ink that's in this area here, you can flush water directly through the front of the Decimo or Vanishing Point, or you can even let that soak a little bit, and that should be able to help with that. Cool? Last question. See if we can get this done in 2 minutes. This is a business question from Souro R on Facebook. Hello to the awesome GPC team. I'm from India, and due to customs regulation and duties, I've only purchased from you folks once, and that was an amazing personal experience for me. Thank you. I know that your main customer base is in the States, so my question is this: how can fountain pen lovers who cannot purchase from you with any kind of frequency due to geographical location or customs issues help you folks out? You push out some amazing content, which is very helpful to everyone in this field. I just feel that I and many others like me owe you for all the education you provide us. Thank you so much for helping us right on. Shine on, GPC. Thank you. I am very honored by that. I really am. So I wanted to help with this because I know we have a large international following, especially on YouTube. And I get this question a lot. There's a lot of variables that are completely outside of our control in terms of customs fees, shipping prices, honestly, duties and just regulations related to shipping internationally, currency conversion as well. There's all these factors that affect price, and I completely understand how frustrating that is if you're outside the United States and you want to buy from us or really anybody else from any other country. And the rules are always changing and it's confusing, and I get it. So, I always like to say you vote with your dollars. So, the best way to support obviously is to actually, support and purchase when you can and when it's practical. But you've kind of already said like it's not practical, and I get that. So the next best thing that you can do is honestly just continue to stay engaged, like continue to watch this stuff, continue to learn. Like there's a reason fundamentally why I put out these videos on YouTube and on free sources as opposed to going like a paid media source. Like it takes an unbelievable amount of time, energy, money to produce all this stuff. And yes, I need to pay the bills, so I have to sell enough product here to be able to keep the lights on and for everybody here to feed their families. But I don't do that with, what's going on here. Like up to this point, I don't have ads on any of our videos. And I've really debated that too. It's like, we got a decent followership now. Like I could put ads on our videos and we could not make an insignificant amount of money just because we get so many views. But it's like, I don't know that I really want to do that. Like I would rather focus 100% on the content for you guys and just being engaged in the community. And I believe just kind of through goodwill that we will get enough of what we need around here through the goodwill that we're giving in the community. And I'm seeing that play out, the trip to Lamy, for example. I mean, just to show you one example of like when I went to Lamy in Germany, I had a guy who gave me a tour there. He watched our Lamy videos 5 years ago to learn about the brand when he was interviewing for his job at Lamy in Germany. And he got the job, obviously. So he was like fanboying out and wanted a selfie and everything. And I was like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? But like that just goes to show when you give and give and give, like how that can pay back in the future. So for me, like for you to continue to stay engaged in what we're doing, liking, commenting, sharing, just talking about us, engaging with us, telling us what's going on, tell us what you want, like just to keep things going. Like we get energy, my whole team, just from the engagement that you guys give us and the encouragement that you give us. And when we come out with a new video or we come out with a new picture and like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, or oh man, can you guys please do this, that fires us up and we really enjoy that process. So if you can't buy from us, I totally understand. Stay engaged. Keep us excited and doing what we're doing, and then share it out to other people, because if you can't buy, the next thing that you can do to support us is to share it with others who maybe can. Rachel's giving me the signal there. I got to run. But, I would say I'll close it out by saying don't feel guilty at all about soaking up all of this stuff and not being able to purchase, because I believe that, when you can, you will. And then if you can share it with others, then that is doing your part. Cool? All right, we're going to close out for this week. My question of the week this week is, what was the first time that you ever traveled outside of your home country, and what was it that brought you there? Or if you haven't traveled outside of your home country, where are you planning to go, if at all? I'm curious about that. Go ahead and leave that in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you can, blog, Twitter, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Shark power to you all. I will see you all later, and right on.